Hi there, my name is Nisha Shamugaraj and I'm an instructor of first year writing at Carnegie Mellon University. Today's video is brought to you by the Video Writing Tutor project, and this video is focusing on something called the novelty moves. Basically what this means is that by the end of this video you are going to be able to frame your research as an essential contribution to an existing conversation of authors talking about a specific topic. These moves, and I'll explain what those mean a little more, they can be used in your introduction of the paper that you're writing. For many of you, this might be a final paper for this class. And they can also be used in your abstract if you're writing one. So we have our agenda at the top of the screen here. I want to get started by thinking about why these moves, why these novelty moves, why is novelty important? And basically, it's because we need to be able to articulate why our work is relevant and important. And we need to be able to do this for a number of different reasons, whether we are appealing to diverse audiences, so talking to non-specialists outside of our fields to really make the case for our research. And for some people, you may need to even make the case about your research to policymakers or even the general public. In addition, receiving funding. So we need to be able to not just do the work that we're doing, but also say why we're doing it and why it's important anytime that money is involved. If we're trying to get funding, if we're trying to get grant money, any type of fellowship, we really need to make the case that what we are doing is a really critical contribution. And then lastly, self-promotion. So whether you are thinking of continuing on into academia or going into industry as well, you really need to be able to make the case that why the work that you're doing, your work, whether in a company or in a department, is really cutting edge stuff and is really pushing forward the field. So those are the reasons that you really do need to be able to talk about the importance of your work. Unfortunately, actually articulating your contribution and your novelty can be very hard. And for many of us, it might be because we are so caught up in the nitty-gritty. We kind of get tunnel vision. What I mean by that is we get so lost in the analyses that we're doing, the data collection, building a model if that's what we're doing, obtaining our results and talking about those results, that we kind of forget the big picture. We kind of forget why we're doing this work in the first place. So this is what this video today is going to be talking about, helping you articulate what the big picture is, how your work contributes to a big picture, and how the state of knowledge is broadened and bigger after your research has been added. So this is the crux of our workshop, these 4 novelty moves. So I'm going to go over these and then I want to look at how they play out in a few examples. So researchers in almost all fields, sciences, humanities, actually use these 4 moves in their introduction in some way to make the case for their research and explain why they're doing what they're doing. So our first move is explaining the significance of our work. And this is kind of a big picture move. You're not even talking about your work yet. You're just kind of talking about the overall topic and the overall realm. Why should we care about this topic? What's at stake? And oftentimes the research that we're doing has direct implications for society, whether it's something like pollution, making things more energy efficient. Maybe we're talking more in the humanities and we're talking about public perception, how people feel about an issue and what they think about an issue. So this is that big picture move. Move number 2, describing the status quo. What is currently known? What's current practices? What's currently going on? What's kind of the cutting edge? What are people talking about or doing right now? Move number 3 is absolutely essential and is often an overlooked move of identifying a gap. What is the problem? If there's no problem, is something missing or unknown? Has the field not been extended to a certain hotspot yet? Has there been work done, but it's flawed or limited in some way? So here we're making the case that there's something going on in our work that is, something going on in the status quo that is problematic and needs to be addressed. And then lastly, filling that gap. So actually taking that problem that you've created and then articulating how your solution, your research is going to solve that problem or move toward solving that problem. So I think these moves can be best understood by looking at an example. So go ahead and pause your video, just read this over, and then I'm going to talk us through it as well. Okay, so hopefully you got a chance to look over this example. I want to talk us through this one before you guys do some of these on your own. So for this example, we learned that although although plastic has revolutionized modern life, the environmental impact is staggering. Here we have clear moves at significance with these words like revolutionized or staggering. Definitely a big picture significance that I, even as a non-specialist, care about. We then learn that bioplastics may provide a sustainable alternative to petroleum plastics because of these reasons, and that one especially promising bioplastic is PLA, which has some advantages. Now, I'm going to classify this as the status quo. What is currently going on in the field? What people are using right now? We get our gap move next. However, the commercial viability of PLA is currently limited. Because of these reasons, it's only compostable in certain conditions. Our problem, this is the gap. What is limited or what is problematic about this current state of affairs? By the end, and I should mention, however, is a wonderful word to signal that gap. It really waves a flag and lets readers know this is something important that's coming up. We've been talking about one thing, now I'm really going to change the conversation now. Then lastly, we get filling the gap. To make PLA more commercially viable, we propose a device. So this is filling the gap. And at this point, we're really primed to hear more about this project because the first three moves have set us up so nicely. So hopefully you can see how this, and this follows, for those of you who know the reverse triangle approach, it follows that kind of broad to narrow. As we lead our readers through these different moves, we get more and more narrow as we're talking about our specific contribution. So what I want you to do now with this next example is take a look, and again, pause your video and see how you would annotate these four moves onto this example. So hopefully you had a chance to look over this video. So now you can kind of check against what I got. So I got the fact that peptic ulcer disease is chronic and frequently recurring as being very significant. The status quo here, I got that recent studies have suggested that eradicating it might decrease ulcers. We then kind of got a twofold gap. There's two things wrong with it. These results have been complicated because of some methodological flaws. It looks like they didn't use control group blinding, and they didn't do tests on a specific type of person or a specific type of patient. And then we don't even really need to know what their filling the gap is, because I can imagine it is going to be that we report the results of a study that has used blinding and done on patients with gastric ulcers. So again, we're really primed there. So one last exercise to kind of clarify things. Again, pause your video and read through these two sample introduction paragraphs, and then think about which version is stronger to you. So hopefully you had time to pause your video and look through this a little bit. I'm going to say that while example 1 would be okay for an expert audience who's going to be diving right in, example 2 really does offer a little bit more context, and it lets us know what the problem is before telling me about their solution. Now, that is a really powerful rhetorical move because I understand what the problem is before getting their solution. And that really is much more persuasive when they finally give me their solution. But again, go ahead, you can feel free to pause your video again and think about there are some advantages from example 1 over example 2, and there are certainly contexts when I might see example 1 being more appropriate. So this isn't kind of a one-size-fits-all. I just think example 2 is going to be more effective, especially for a non-expert audience, and especially when you need to make the case that your research is important. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of an overview of these moves. A couple more notes here on where they're located. So the length of these moves is going to depend on where you're using them. All of the examples that we've looked at today have been used kind of as the first paragraph of an introduction. 250 words, just that first paragraph, just a straight shot of the novelty right at the beginning. But sometimes that's a little too abrupt, so maybe we want to do something like this. Maybe we want to expand these moves to several paragraphs in our introduction. Maybe we have one paragraph of the introduction, a couple of the status quo, a few of the gap, and then we start filling our contribution. They can also be expanded to several pages throughout your introduction, so that's an option as well. The last thing here is that these moves can also be contracted to fit within your abstract. So we can take all 4 of these moves and squish them into just 50 words to fit within a 250-word abstract. So this was a very brief overview of these novelty moves. For more information and to really dig into these and see how they'll apply to your own writing, please definitely make an appointment at the Global Communication Center. We also have a full-length recorded video, an hour-long video of these moves that will hopefully provide even a little bit more context. So hopefully that gives you a little insight into how to construct your research as novel. And good luck with whatever paper that you're writing.